right, St. Louis. I'd like to say good morning, St. Louis. On this beautiful Sunday morning. As you can see, I'm heading to the gym. I'm going to take a few minutes if I can, St. Louis. Just to try to break it down so you all can get a good understanding as to why I think the way I think. Just for a moment. Just imagine, St. Louis, if we are just starting off in the world is just starting, and everyone's operating at the level of analog. In other words, we don't have the processing power to understand there's something beyond what we know. So we've acknowledged what we know as truth because we can't perceive beyond what we know. In other words, in order to perceive beyond, you need the power. Analog, digital, HD, 5G. What's after 5G? It's hard to really come to the realization of what's actually going on until you possess the power to know what's going on. But unfortunately, as time progresses, as those that are teachers get older, and I don't like calling it older, I think they're decaying. The cells are mutating, the frequency, the sound is changing. So just imagine when the sound changes, you lose your ability to process deeper. So as a result of your inability to process deeper, you accept things as they are because you can't go beyond where you dwell. However, if your mind begins to grow exponentially and you begin to see things that you were incapable of seeing before, many don't understand it, don't understand you. But that's okay that they don't understand you because it's not their fault. In other words, for those of us that understand, it's our responsibility to keep seeking more clarity, even though it might become a little confusing to those that understand because the masses don't understand. And the traditions are laid out by those that were in the beginning. So as a result of those laying out the traditions, we've been following the traditions. Because there is a place when those that literally led in the beginning can only go so far and they tend to die off. So as a result, they haven't reached a level of knowledge to be able to go beyond where they are. No different than satellites, 25,000 miles an hour orbiting, bringing pictures down to Earth via satellite. They didn't have that level of technology back in the 1500s. They knew not of it, nor did they even think that it could exist. No different than television, telephone. In other words, without that level of power, people couldn't leave. But in all honesty, and when I say leave, I'm speaking in terms of the place in which they dwell. But what they fail to realize, you're really not going anywhere. Even though it appears as though you are, your mind is just getting stronger. So as a result, there's more ways of taking the trip via energy, via power. Nothing's physical. I'm not even driving a car. And you're saying, okay, now, Walt, you must have been smoking some dope or something. What I mean by not driving the car, before I got in the car, I encoded the car down at the cellular level. So as a result, it became what it was called, a car. I'm sitting in the seat. It was called a seat. I'm changing the radio. It was called radio so we could all communicate with one another. And as a result of us communicating with one another, we could be on the same accord. And as a result of us being on the same accord, it goes global. Everybody's talking the same language. You might have English, Spanish, different types of languages, but the interpretation is the same. But in all honesty, no one has actually went anywhere. Everybody, they're not moving as you perceive. Everything is like frames, like pictures. Different pictures, different frames. Some of them 50, 60, 70, 80 frames. Some of them might be 1 trillion frames. So based upon us not having the knowledge of understanding the deeper level of truth, meaning those that endure to the end shall be saved, the end of the power of the knowledge. In other words, those of us that have the ability to extrapolate at a level in which most people can't even perceive they're capable of extrapolating because they have not the power to understand that they don't understand. That's where we must go. We must go so deep to where we can literally measure the position of every atom in the universe and create precognition. And as a result of creating precognition, we could literally stop time and understand what's going to happen before it happens. We're living in the past. And the reason we're living in the past is because the mind is working too slow. It's working too slow. It's not developed. So as a result of it being not developed, the things that we're producing is killing us. From carcinogens to poison, to alcohol, to drugs, to pollution, to radiation. We're building things to go further in distance, but the things we're building it's killing us because we're going the wrong way as it relates to building the things. We're trying to go into space and colonize certain planets, but we fail to realize the place in which we're trying to go is in us. It's not outside of us. You need no propulsion. You need contraction, just like a supernova, literally contracting and becoming a supernova. We're in trouble. And many of you don't realize you're in trouble because you have not the mind to know that you are. We can do this, but we must do it together. The reason we hate one another, black and white, Asian, Hispanic, is because we are illiterate and ignorant. And we hadn't reached the level of mind to know that we're all one at the deeper level of truth, and we fail to realize it because we've been following false doctrine. Many of you have been following religion from Catholic, Christian, Buddhist, Hindus, all over, and it's incomplete. It's not complete. I'm trying my best to get you to understand that you don't understand. Many of you trying to find Jesus, trying to find Muhammad, trying to find Buddha, fail to realize it's not literal. It's a parable. It's an allegory. However, if you lack the mind to know that it is, you're going to believe that it is. No different than a child playing with a baby doll. Until that child reaches a certain age, the child realizes there's more information out there than the baby doll. Until then, the child can't see anything beyond what it sees, so that in which it sees becomes its reality. And that's how we've been living since we've been created. It's time for us to go deeper in the truth. It's time for us to understand that those that came up with the planets from all the way down to Mercury up to Neptune, it's incomplete. Nothing's outside you. Everything is inside you. It appears to be outside because you're only utilizing a small percentage of your undeveloped mind. Once you develop your mind, you'll be able to process and understand that everything was in you the whole time. You realize when you get on the plane going to grandmama's house, you're not literally getting on the plane. You're encoding the information, and as a result of the power in which they're using to fuel the plane, is what you're actually not necessarily hearing, but feeling, which causes you to believe that you're flying. Everything is in us. Everything is in us. There's nothing outside you. Once you come to that realization that everything is in you and you become that perfect truth, darkness must bow. Darkness cannot defeat the light at perfection, and it knows that. Darkness is looking to make you a host so it can literally toss you to and from and manipulate you to do what it wants you to do, but yet it realizes it has no power without you. We must stop following false doctrine. We must, and I know it's very difficult. It's no different than the caveman back in the day. They were following a tribal leader, but they failed to realize he was illiterate because they too had not reached the mind in which they needed to reach in order to know there was more than what they knew. We've been following fables and stories, and as a result of following these fables and stories, we are susceptible to diseases, bacteria, viruses, plagues, because we never strengthen our mind to be able to fight that bacteria or fight cancer or fight diabetes. You're living in poison. You're living in an incomplete sound, a sound that's dark. And as a result, you have not the ability to fight what's trying to destroy you. And that's that negative sound. You must begin to understand that you are that diamond in the rough. You are that sound above every sound. However, you must manifest it, not tomorrow, but today. As I said before, I refuse to quit. My grandbaby, your grandbaby, they're going to need us. Because if not, the cycle will continue. And when your grandbaby is 20, 30 years old, and you're 50 right now, chances are you'll be in a nursing home or in the grave. And I'll be damned if I'm not here making a difference for my grandbaby, your grandbaby. In order to do this, we have to manifest truth. We have to begin to think that the world is not as it appears. And in order for us to change this world, we must first change ourselves. Shout out to my grandbaby Noah. Granddaddy love your son. Granddaddy is not going nowhere. Granddaddy be here. Noah, when your baby is born, when your grandbaby is born, granddaddy ain't going nowhere. Oh, hell no. It's time for us to work feverishly hard so we can change the trajectory of hell on earth and reverse the course of death. We can do it. Many of you don't think it's possible. The reason you don't think it's possible because your mind is not developed enough to even believe that it is. Once you develop your mind, you have the power to be able to make the statement that it is possible. Until then, you don't have enough power to believe. So you're going to believe fables and stories. That's okay. I'm going to fight until you come to understand that you are that diamond in the rough, that you are made in the image, and you must become that image. Shout out to the Bahamas. Shout out to New York, also Oregon. My grandbaby Noah, my son Winton and Catherine. Love you guys. Shout out to Chi-Town, Tanya in the house. Shout out to Alabama. Shout out to Georgia, Kathy, Andre, Randy, and the rest of the crew. Mike Knowles, Big John Steele, Pam, Ashley, Crystal, Billy, Margot, Eric, my main man, Chris Hood, also Dale. There's so many of you. I want you all to understand, this is our season. Take that mountain. Shout out to St. Louis as well as Florida. Walter, Zion, Gabe, and Danielle. As I said before, we must travel deeper into truth and bring that truth here to earth, and that we shall. God bless.